The airport was nearly empty except for the snow pressing against the glass like it wanted to come in. The world outside looked like it had been erased. All white hush and nowhere to go. Inside, the terminal lights hummed low and yellow, stretching long shadows across the floor. Ben shifted Lily's backpack from one shoulder to the other, careful not to jostle her as she clung to his leg. She was 4, but in moments like this, when the hour was too late and her legs too small, she felt as weighty and fragile as memory. She held a napkin tight in her hand, a tiny sketch forming in blue pen. A house, a stick-figure girl, a bigger, one with long hair. Their flight number blinked on the overhead screen. Delayed, then boarding. A quiet announcement came through, barely above a whisper. He sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. She didn't notice. She was staring, out the window at the snow. The plane was half full, its aisle lit by that peculiar evening glow. Not day, not night, just hovering. People shuffled in slow, heavy movements, coats still dusted with cold. Ben guided Lily toward their seats, row 19, where the window was smudged and the middle seat was empty. Across the aisle, 2 rows down, a woman sat curled, her coat wrapped, around a small baby pressed to her chest. Her head rested awkwardly against the window, her mouth slightly parted in sleep. She looked young, but worn, tired in a way Ben knew too well. He settled Lily into the window seat. She didn't complain, just leaned her head against the wall and began tracing something into the fogged glass. Maybe a star, maybe nothing at all. Ben took the aisle seat and exhaled slow. Silence filled the cabin like fog, thick and full of unspoken things. Somewhere, behind them, a man snored softly. A baby whimpered, then fell quiet again. The flight attendant walked by with the kind of practiced warmth that never quite reached the eyes. Ben took a small notebook from his coat pocket. Tucked inside was a folded, creased piece of paper. He didn't open it. He knew the words. He'd written them months ago, maybe longer. It was addressed to Lily's mother, not the woman who raised her, but the one who left before she could form words like stay or why. Dear Elise, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say it anyway. He tucked the letter back in and placed the coat over his knees. Lily yawned, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, she murmured. Do moms ever come back? Ben's chest tightened. He looked at her, eyes wide and trusting, already half asleep. Sometimes, he said softly. Sometimes they do. She nodded like that was enough and turned toward the window. Her breathing slowed, soft and steady. Ben glanced again at the woman across the aisle. Her head had slipped to one side. The baby stirred in her arms, restless, in sleep. Her coat had fallen back, leaving her shoulder bare to the cabin chill. The baby's foot, small and sockless, peeked out from a loose blanket. He hesitated, then he stood slowly, careful not to wake Lily, and reached for his coat. The fabric was frayed at the cuffs, faded in places. It had once belonged to his brother, passed down in a box of things after the accident. It still smelled faintly of cedar and rain. He stepped across the aisle. His breath caught. The woman didn't stir. With slow hands, he draped the coat gently over her and the baby, tucking, the edges just so. A pause. Then he brushed a stray hair from her cheek, a gesture so brief it could have been a blink. Ben returned to his seat, heart quiet, hands colder than before. He didn't expect a thank you, didn't want one. Some kindnesses were just given. To the night, like breath into frost. The plane began to taxi. Lights dimmed further. Outside, snow still danced under the runway lights like it hadn't stopped falling in years. Lily was asleep. The woman remained still. The letter shifted in his pocket as he leaned back, the words waiting. But not tonight. Tonight was about silence. Somewhere, over Nebraska, the captain's voice murmured through the intercom. smooth skies ahead. Ben didn't sleep. He watched the dark curve of the horizon, watched the baby's fingers twitch in dreams, watched Lily curl further into herself, whispering something about crayons and cake. He thought of the things he never said to Elise, the mornings without answers, the birthday candles blown out by 2, not 3. Maybe this moment, this coat, this silence, was enough. Maybe kindness could be anonymous, like a letter with no return address. He shifted in his seat, eyes heavy, breath fogging the tiny plastic window. The baby made a small sound. A hiccup, then silence. A few rows ahead, someone coughed. It was a strange, soft kind of peace, and then a small motion. The woman across the aisle stirred. Her eyes opened, bleary with sleep. She looked down at the coat, her hand pressing it to her chest. Then around, confused, searching. Her gaze caught Ben's. He offered nothing, just a slow nod, respectful, as if to say, "It's all right, just let it be." She didn't speak, just gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod in return. The kind of thanks only strangers know how to give. She curled back into her seat, now warm beneath his coat, the baby nestling closer. Ben leaned his head back, closed his eyes. The engines hummed low and steady. Snow fell above the clouds, unseen but still there, and, in that fragile quiet, between questions unasked and answers unspoken, the world felt for a moment whole. Dawn leaked through the cabin windows like gold spilled over silver. It wasn't sudden, this kind of light. It came in slowly, like something unsure if it was welcome. It warmed the tops of heads, painted the edges of cheeks, settled into the quiet folds of fabric and thought. Somewhere beneath that gentle bloom of daybreak, the woman stirred. Ben noticed before she moved. The way her breath changed, the way her fingers curled differently around the baby. She blinked slowly, eyelashes heavy with sleep, her face marked, faintly by the texture of the jacket she hadn't meant to borrow. She looked down at it, worn brown canvas, soft from age, and touched it as if it had appeared from a dream. Her baby cooed softly in her arms, tiny fists rising and falling like the tide. She pulled him closer and held him there, like holding on to something you don't yet have words for. She didn't speak right away. Ben didn't expect her to. The air still held the hush of a shared night, a kind of borrowed peace. He turned slightly in his seat, offering a quiet smile. Not too much, just enough to be noticed if she wanted to. The baby reached for something. The air, a thought, maybe the thread between strangers, and caught Ben's finger with his tiny hand. "He's got a strong grip," Ben said softly, his voice still warming up from silence. The woman looked at him, not startled, just measuring. Her eyes were deep with something unnamed. Not sadness, not tiredness, something heavier but quieter. "His name's Theo," she said, voice like water over stones. Graceful but worn from the journey. Ben nodded. "Beautiful name. She gave a slow blink in thanks. Then turned to Theo, brushing her thumb gently against his cheek. Her hand, small and pale, moved over his head with a kind of reverence. Ben noticed the way her fingers hovered near a place on her left hand where a ring once lived, now bare, now remembered. Across the aisle, Lily stirred and yawned, blinking up at the seatback screen. Some animated fox with a scarf played quietly. She giggled, reached for her napkin drawing again. Ben watched her and felt it. That ache. The one that comes not from what's gone, but what was almost real. "I'm Ben," he said. She didn't respond right away, just glanced at him, then back down to Theo. "Amanda," she said finally gently, like sharing a secret. Silence followed, but not the awkward kind, the kind that feels like a pause in music, intentional, full of things unsaid. The plane shifted slightly, a hint of turbulence, just enough to ripple drinks and stir shoulders. Amanda flinched, the kind of flinch that lives in the bones. She reached instinctively for her water, but her hand shook just slightly. Ben reached too, steadying the cup as it tilted. Their fingers brushed, her breath caught. Not loud, not sharp, just a tiny inward inhale, like someone remembering a touch they used to trust. He didn't move away. Neither did she. The tremble passed. "Thank you," she said finally, eyes still on the cup. "For the jacket," Ben smiled. "My daughter says it's magic, keeps the monsters out." Amanda let out one soft, breathy laugh. Just one. It curled into the air between them and stayed. Ben looked back at Lily. She was busy folding something now, her brows furrowed in concentration, a small airplane from the napkin she'd drawn on. The crayon lines bled faintly into the creases. She kissed it, whispered something only it could hear, then tossed it across the aisle. It fluttered unevenly and landed near Amanda's feet. Amanda looked at it, then at Lily, who gave a shy wave. From behind her seatbelt, Amanda picked it up gently, smoothed the folds. Inside was a drawing, crude, wobbly, but unmistakable. 3 stick figures. One small baby with curly hair, a dog with floppy ears. Amanda blinked once, folded the airplane again, carefully, as if it were breakable. "She makes families out of napkins," Ben said softly. Amanda didn't look at him, but she nodded. "She's good at seeing things," she replied, her voice lower, almost lost in the hum of the plane. Theo stirred. Amanda adjusted him expertly, cradling him tighter against her chest. She looked at Ben again, this time longer. "Your daughter," she said. "She's happy." Ben glanced at Lily, who was now humming to herself and swinging her legs. "Yeah," he said. "She is, most of the time. More than I deserve, maybe." Amanda didn't ask what he meant, and he didn't explain. In the silence, Amanda leaned back, closed her eyes for a moment. "You traveling for something?" she asked after a beat. Ben thought, then said, "Coming back from a visit. My father's not well." She opened her eyes again, softened. "I'm sorry." He nodded once. "It's okay, Lily doesn't really understand. She just sees Grandpa in a bed with machines and asks when he can come build tree houses." A pause. Then Amanda said, "That's not a bad way to see the world?" Ben smiled faintly. No, it's not." Outside the window, the clouds stretched, like fields of salt. Somewhere below, people were waking up to breakfasts and mail and snow-covered porches. Amanda touched the napkin plane again. "My husband," she said, pausing. "Well, ex-husband, I guess. He used to fold these for me. When we were kids, little love notes, before love became something heavy." Ben didn't speak, just waited. Amanda's eyes didn't shine. They didn't break. They just stared at something distant. "He left before Theo was born," she said. "Didn't think he was ready to be a dad again." Again. Ben heard it, the underline. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "I'm not," she replied, quiet but firm. "Not anymore." Theo hiccuped softly. Amanda smiled down at him, and for a moment she looked like someone younger than her years. Someone who had once run through sprinklers barefoot. "You're good with him," Ben said. "I try," she replied. "I think babies don't need perfection, just softness." Ben looked at Lily again. "Yeah, that sounds right." Another quiet passed, as tender as the first. Amanda leaned her head slightly toward the window, but she didn't sleep. She just watched the slow shift of morning. Ben turned toward Lily. She was asleep again, mouth slightly open, hand still resting on the folded napkin pack. He looked at Amanda and whispered, "I haven't talked like this." "Not in a while." Amanda glanced at him. "Me neither." Their eyes held. The captain's voice cracked softly over the speaker. "We'll begin our descent shortly. Local weather is clear and cold." Amanda nodded once. "Fitting." Ben raised an eyebrow. "This whole flight," she said. "It felt like winter holding its breath." He smiled. "Yeah, but it let us be warm, just for a bit." She didn't reply, just smiled, small and grateful. Theo grabbed her necklace and tugged. Amanda kissed the top of his head. Ben looked down at the jacket still draped over her lap. She hadn't given it back. She hadn't moved it, and somehow it looked like it belonged there. Just like her. Just like this. And as the plane dipped toward land, slicing gently into dawn, the warmth between them held. Not loud, not promised, but real. "Mrs. Calloway will be landing shortly." The flight attendant's voice was warm, respectful, the kind of tone reserved for someone who wasn't just another passenger. Ben looked up from the tray table he'd half-heartedly cleaned. The name hit him like a whisper turning into a knock. Calloway. His eyes drifted, searching. The baby's blanket. White and soft, embroidered with a little stitched logo in one corner. A stylized wing and the word Calloway in elegant thread. Her. Carry-on, navy blue, leather trimmed. The same crest, pressed in silver on a tag looped through the handle. Ben's mouth opened slightly, but the words were slow to follow. He studied her again, now with the faintest shift in understanding. The quiet strength, the effortless calm, the way the crew seemed to orbit her with silent reverence. He finally asked, "Calloway, like the airline?" She didn't look surprised, just tired. Her pause was deliberate. Then she nodded. "My late husband was, well, this was his dream." Ben watched her face the way it softened but didn't crumble. She didn't elaborate. He didn't pry. But something passed between them, that strange bond forged between people who know loss. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The kind that just never really leaves the room. Ben looked down at the floor. "I'm sorry." Amanda smiled faintly. "So am I." Theo stirred in her lap. His small hand tangled around the fabric of Ben's jacket, still draped over them both. Ben shifted slightly in his seat. The descent had begun. A gentle drop that made your ears tickle and your heart lurch, no matter how many times you flew. "Never got to fly it," Amanda said, as if continuing a thought she hadn't meant to say aloud. "The plane, the company." Ben looked at her, more fully now. "I named it after him," she added, "after the crash." He felt his breath catch slightly. "The plane crash." She nodded once. He was quiet, then, "I lost Lily's mom before she was born." Amanda turned, her head slowly. "Car accident," he said. "She never got to see her first steps." Amanda didn't respond right away, just watched him, not with pity, but something warmer, respectful, kind. Ben looked out the window, where the clouds had begun to thin, revealing patches of ground like an old quilt pulled halfway off the bed. "We were gonna name her after her mom," he said. "But when she was born, she wasn't anyone else. She was Lily." Amanda nodded. "I understand." Their conversation was quiet, but full, like someone adding pages to a book instead of closing it. The plane began to shake a little, not turbulence, just the familiar hum of getting close to home. Ben turned back to her. "I thought you might have just known someone important. In the company, I mean." Amanda smiled, a little crooked. "I do." And then he realized she wasn't someone who knew the owner. She was the owner. It was all there. The name. The way the staff deferred to her without being obvious. The subtle, lived-in authority of someone who didn't need to wear it loudly. He glanced down at Theo, curled against her chest, still gripping the cuff of his jacket. The old thing looked almost elegant now, like it belonged in her arms. Like it had found a new chapter. "Funny thing," Amanda said, almost to herself. "The more success we built, the smaller my life became." Ben met her eyes. "You still made it fly." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Eventually. The landing gear deployed with a muffled clunk. The shift of weight changed everything. The cabin felt heavier, the silence more pronounced. The pilot stepped out from the cockpit after the final checks, not rushed, not rehearsed, just a man with soft eyes and shoulders squared by decades in the sky. He stopped at Amanda's row. "Mrs. Calloway," he said, and nodded with the kind of deference that meant more than rank. "Good to have you. Back." "Thank you, Jim," she replied, her tone calm, assured. Everything was perfect. Ben looked between them, this small interaction confirming what he already knew now. Not guessed. Knew. The pilot clapped a hand on Ben's seat lightly as he passed. "She picked a good flight." Amanda didn't flinch. She only glanced at Ben and then at her son, who had now fully tangled himself into Ben's jacket. The plane touched down smoothly. The sound of tires kissing the runway filled the air like an exhale. Inside, people stirred. Seatbelts clicked. The spell of the sky began to break. Ben leaned over slightly, reaching gently toward his jacket. Not to take it, just to smooth. The sleeve. Theo wouldn't let go. His tiny fist clung to the frayed edge of the cuff like it was stitched to him. Amanda looked down and smiled. "You'll get it back eventually," she said. Ben laughed quietly. No rush. They stood together in the aisle once the seatbelt sign pinged off. Amanda lifted her bag with one arm. Theo balanced expertly on her hip. Ben waited with her as passengers filed out, thanking attendants, stretching limbs, pulling bags from overhead. Compartments. Lily joined him at his side, sleepy and pink-cheeked. "She's pretty," Lily said softly, eyeing Amanda. Ben smiled. "Yeah, she is." Amanda turned. "Lily, thank you for the airplane." Lily blushed and ducked behind Ben's side. "She's shy sometimes," Ben said. Amanda leaned down a little. "My son's already attached to your dad's coat. Seems like a fair trade." Lily giggled, then whispered something in Ben's ear. He bent down, listened, then nodded. "She wants to make one more napkin airplane. For Theo." Amanda smiled, but her eyes softened. "He'd like that." They stepped off the plane together into the jetway where warm air met the cold bite of early morning. At the gate, a woman in a tailored coat and earpiece waited for Amanda, who handed over her carry-on with a nod of thanks. She paused, turning back to Ben. "I'm not always flying private," she said, like a confession. "Sometimes it's good to be just a passenger." Ben nodded. "Sometimes that's the best way to remember where you came from." They looked at each other for a long moment, the kind that holds too much to name. Amanda shifted Theo in her arms. He was still gripping the jacket, drooling slightly on the worn canvas. "You sure you don't want it back now?" she asked. Ben looked down, then up. "No, let him hold on to it a while longer." Amanda smiled. "Then I guess you'll have to see us again." He met her gaze. "I guess I will." Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Can we?" Amanda raised a brow. "Are you asking if we fly this airline again, or if we see me again?" Ben chuckled. "Yes," she laughed. Truly laughed this time. And Ben felt something shift inside him. Not something sudden. Something long in the making. As Amanda turned to walk away, she paused, reached into her bag, pulled out a small card. Embossed, simple, with only one word in the center. Calloway. She handed it to Ben. "No pressure," she said. He took it. "Some monsters," he said, holding up the empty sleeve of the jacket. "Still need a little magic." Amanda looked at him. "Then maybe we're both still learning how to fly." And with that, she disappeared into the terminal crowd. A woman, a baby, and a coat that no longer just belonged to one man. Ben stood there for a long time, holding the card, feeling the weight of something both new and familiar. Then Lily slipped her hand into his, and they walked forward. The cold hits harder than expected when they step outside the terminal. Not the kind of cold that stings or punishes, just sharp enough to remind you you're alive. It wraps around Ben and Lily as he carries her close, her little body heavy. With sleep, her cheek pressed against his shoulder. She murmurs something unintelligible, deep in a dream she won't remember. Amanda's standing beside them. She's wrapped Theo into a soft gray carrier on her chest, her coat draped open so he stays warm. He's awake, bright-eyed, clutching at the cuff of that old canvas jacket like it's a tether. They walk together without speaking. Their footsteps echo in the half-lit walkway between gate and baggage claim, a strange little no-man's land between sky and ground, beginning and end. Ben shifts Lily slightly, careful not to wake her. Amanda notices. "She trusts you," she says softly. Ben looks at her. "Sometimes I think she knows more than she says." Amanda smiles. "They all do, until we teach them not to." At the carousel, the bags begin to slide out with a soft, mechanical hum. Ben spots his worn duffel and lifts it with one hand. Amanda's bag is already waiting nearby, set aside neatly by the same assistant from before. As the rest of the travelers begin to gather their things and move on, Amanda reaches into the side pocket of her carry-on. She hands Ben a small white envelope. No name, no logo. Just sealed. He raises an eyebrow. "It's nothing dramatic," she says. "Just a thank you." Ben starts to open it. "Later," she adds, "when you're alone." He nods and tucks it into his back pocket. They walk together to the edge of the terminal, where the real world begins again. Cars idling, wheels squealing. Against wet pavement, distant voices rising and falling under the covered drop-off. Ben sets his bag down, adjusts Lily on his shoulder. Her arms are tucked in tightly now, face red from sleep. Amanda looks at the jacket, still slung loosely over her arm, Theo's fingers wound around the edge of the sleeve. Ben reaches for it gently. "I can take it back," he offers. Amanda doesn't move. Instead, she lays her hand over his. "Keep it," she says. "I think it already belongs to Theo anyway." Ben hesitates. "You sure?" "I think it's one of those things that's meant to stay where it ends up." They share a quiet smile. Not goodbye exactly. Something softer. Ben pulls the jacket on slowly. It still fits, barely, but it's changed somehow. Not just in smell or feel. It's carried something now. Memory, weight, meaning. He fishes into his front pocket and pulls out an old folded piece of paper. The envelope is worn, stained at the corners. The handwriting faded, the ink nearly bled from time. Amanda watches, without speaking. Ben opens it, reads the letter silently. His eyes scan slowly, line by line, the way someone reads something for the last time. It was the letter he'd written to Lily's mom after the accident. Never mailed, never shown. It was, full of hope and sorrow and all the things he never got to say. He folds it once, then again. Then he tears it down the middle. Amanda inhales softly, but says nothing. He hands one half to Lily, who stirs and wakes just enough to hold it between tiny fingers. The other half he slides into the inside pocket of the coat, the one with the loose thread and Theo's drool still damp on the cuff. Then he stands. The snow has begun to fall again, light, almost hesitant, as if it's not sure winter is ready to return. Amanda watches him flag down a taxi. Ben opens the door, hesitates, then turns back. "Thank you," he says. "For the flight?" He shakes his head. "For the landing." Amanda's smile is faint, almost sad, but the corners of her eyes are soft. He lifts Lily into the back seat gently. She curls up against his side, still holding the paper airplane they made together before takeoff. Amanda steps back as a taxi pulls away. She doesn't wave immediately. Theo babbles something that only she can understand. She adjusts the strap on the carrier, tucking his feet closer to her chest. The jacket sleeve flaps in the wind behind him. Empty, weightless. She stands still, snow catching in her hair, her breath clouding in front of her. Then she lifts a hand. Waves once. Softly. Ben doesn't look back, but maybe he doesn't need to. The taxi disappears into the blur of headlights and snowfall. Amanda stands for a while, unmoving. Then, as if to no one at all, she whispers to herself, "Sometimes they do come back." And behind her, the sign above. The terminal glows faintly in the white light. Callaway Air. The stars overhead are hidden, but somewhere above the clouds, they're still there. Waiting. If this story touched you, subscribe or share where you're watching from. These stories matter